I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Año nuevo, los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawái, Alaska y California y con entrega.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Well, Kevin told me he wanted to talk about a conspiracy theory. And I said, what's the biggest conspiracy that people really, are being misled by or delusioned by that I think I can make a case for? And basically what I came up with is, why is it that the federal government discourages prepping and encourages dependency? And I know that's written off as a conspiracy, that the government doesn't really do that. But do they? I feel like I can make a strong case, but we're going to have some things to lay out and we'll see. I always find one of the things that I find very controversial is whenever something bad happens, we talk about how resilient the American people are and how proud we are. Like whenever something bad, happen, we're like, yeah, look, Americans, they just, from the bootstraps, we take care of ourselves. But anybody who's a prepper, they're just crazy, right? They're just like, oh, that guy, he's stockpiling food. He's an evil hoarder. Or why does he have water and all that toilet paper? Look, he's got all that toilet paper in his cart. And you're like, dude, I'm at Sam's Club. Like, what am I going to do? But Kevin, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are sometimes I have those poops where I just have to keep wiping and wiping. Use that toilet paper, man.
You don't know my diet, right? Oh.
Yeah, when it's all beer and beef jerky, things go sideways sometimes,
If you don't eat the vegetables, that's what my wife's always telling me. It's the vegetables. And I'm like, no, it's bad. But so that's one of the things. So what are some reasons of why the government would, discourage people from prepping? Any thoughts on that, Kevin? Or want me to take the lead on that one?
If you have to rely on the government, you have to do what the government says. I mean, that's the long and short of it.
That's it. It's to me, it's about control, right? And I think that's what makes it a conspiracy theory. What the government doesn't want to control you. The government's here to help you, right? I mean, that's always the thought. But here's the deal. During a crisis, you want to have one person in charge and just take leadership and own it. And you need predictable behavior, right? You need compliance. You need centralized coordination. And honestly, independence, just the word independence is contrary to doing what everybody else is doing, right? And that's kind of what they're afraid of. How can we help you if everybody's running off their own way? And that's a valid point. I mean, it really is. It's legitimate that how do I help you if you're all, but in my mind as a prepper, I want to be able to say, well, I'm going to just, do my thing and you do you. You don't even need to worry about me. You don't need to round me up. But then the government's like, well, how can I protect you? How can I protect you, Chuck, if you're out there and you're the only guy on your street? I don't know if roving gangs are gonna. And what if I leave you out there, are you gonna go loot your neighbors' houses when they all come to the shelter? You might. You might. How do they know that I'm the good guy?
The answer is yes. Right.
Kevin, you weren't supposed to say that. You're pitching for the other team here now.
Yes. So let's talk about FEMA. The fear has gone down significantly lately. So FEMA is like slash budget, staff reductions, thousands of full-time staff members. States have federal funding, meaning they have a larger burden. States themselves do. Be shaped to be smaller and less centralized, leading to major concern preparedness. So the fact is that there's not as much people out there to help you as there used to be in major crises. Remember when we had the disaster down in New Orleans, the hurricane, the name of it, and they said that the first trucks, the Walmart truck, Trina, and Walmart came through. Everybody's like, oh, Walmart did it, but I don't really feel like I want to be at the mercy of major corporations.
Kevin, you're at the mercy of the kindness of other people. And that's how you want it. You're supposed to take that. The kindness of others, the American spirit, the resilience. That's actually one of the things I kept hearing about Helene was that, people would do all this helping out and charity and bringing in supplies. And then FEMA would want to like commandeer it and be like, nope, we're giving it out. It's us. It was FEMA the whole time, and, like they're the hero. And I don't know. I don't know the truth. I know people, at least people in my world, tend to have a little hostility towards the government. And so the fact that it could be slanted a little bit is possible. Right. That's definitely one way that it could go.
Yeah.
But it really is hard to control people when they're all doing their own thing. And honestly, I hate to say it, the government would have to admit that it has limitations. If you go in and go this way, right? If we say you guys need to be prepared, there's ready.gov, right? That's what everyone always tries to point out to me, well, ready.gov says you should have a supply of food and a supply of things. It's true. But the government doesn't want to say, hey, I can't take care of you. Hey, you're on your own. And that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Downplaying threats, and a lot of the time it's an attempt to project that they can control things. They're trying to like make you think that they're, in charge and they're competent. They're not, bro. Secret from the pros. They're not. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah. Well, no politician gets elected by saying, hey, if you put me in charge, I'm going to tell you you're screwed. Right. Oh, the economy's going to hell in a handbasket. That's one of the things. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear you put me in charge and everything is going to be great. That toilet paper, it's going to be soft as butter. You're going to only need one square because it's going to work so well. Your diet's going to be so you won't even need toilet paper. You just go poop and it'll drop out in a big solid. I think if you ever watched South Park, they had that Tom Brady poop that they were trying to get. That was the premium. It was when people were taking the bacteria from other people's poop. And I don't know. Anyway.
Right.
So Tom Brady poop is the good stuff. That's all I can tell you. But that's what happens if you elect the right politician. You get premium toilet paper and premium pooping because everything is rainbows and sunshine. That's really what it comes down to. I used to tell myself in the military, well, when we bombed that building, that was, we should have done that because that was the right thing. Or we need to invade this country. We need to go attack Venezuela because that's the right thing. We don't know. And then you start to look at it and you're like, oh, maybe they had other motives, But yeah, we don't need to really get into Venezuela right now. But yeah, there's, lots of things that the government, you want to be able to trust them, and they want to project that authority. They want to say, hey, we're in charge. We're going to handle things and everything is going to be okay. But they really can't. And I got to say, one, I think there really is that fear of firearms too. I think, citizens having guns, having the ability to rebel, basically, but it's not just about guns. It's about if you can take care of yourself, you don't need them. And I think that's what's at the heart of every prepper, like that they're thinking is if I can take care of myself, they can't tell me what to do because they have nothing they can take away from me. Now, obviously, we all know that jackbooted thugs can come take anything they want, right? They can come rip you out of the house and shoot your dog and anything they want to do. You don't really have a say over that. But if you have firearms and you're independent, you might be able to have a little more say than, other. But that's I think the big thing. I think that's where the conspiracy comes in is everybody's like, well, look, if I take care of myself, I am free. The more I need from you, the less free I am. Plus, I think you could also make an argument that if you tax me to death, you have my money and I don't have my money. I can't buy the independence that I want, right? That kind of is a thing. And also, in a way, if I pay off my house and I still have to keep paying you my taxes every month for my property, then do I own it? And am I really free or am I always at your mercy and always have to do what you say? That's where that headbutting kind of rattles. But I also like driving on roads and having a fire department.
Right. But I feel like there's about 90% of the budget, the federal and state budget that could be cut out and still have roads and fire departments and police officers, I guess, if you really feel like you need them.
If you need them. I mean, hey, we freedom, right? That's what I would talk about. Now let's kind of flip the table here a little bit and talk about dependency, right? Why it's almost like the exact opposite of they discourage self-reliance, in my opinion, but then they also seem to encourage dependency. Now that's definitely a controversial statement. And I don't just because you might agree with me on discouraging independence, you might not agree with me that they encourage dependency. But I feel like when they encourage dependency, they increase control. And I think that's a thing. And I think also politicians just want to promise good things so that you vote for them, right? Like, hey, vote for me and I'll give everybody a free phone. Yay, I like free phones. Or we'll make sure that everybody in the country has high-speed internet. That was a big push a little while back. That, they were trying to do. And that's one of those things that it creates dependency, like a prepper is always like, what if help doesn't come? I'm going to handle things. Whereas when you're dependent, it's like, oh, somebody else is going to handle it, but I'll trust the government. And I mean, isn't that what every politician is really going for, is to build that level of trust?
Right. You don't need a gun because
to be like, trust me.
If somebody breaks into your house, I'm sure be there and save your life. You know what I mean? Come and take care of it in 20 minutes. They will find your body and try and figure out who did it. The police don't really solve shit. I can't think of a whole lot of situations I've been in.
Or not. I mean, just say, we can't really solve it. It already happened.
That was last week, dude. I don't know what's going on. We got new stuff going on now. The sure you are, the more property you have, the more things you own, you like police showing up. The more it's a good thing when police show up. When you get anything of value, then showing up is usually a bad thing for you. But somebody's got to work the rich people.
Right? Exactly. Now that's it. Somebody's got to be at the behest of the rich. I don't know. But it's definitely a balance, right? So let's talk about poverty in the US. Like, are we fixing it? Is that what the government's doing? They're coming in and helping. I did pull up a chart. I was like, oh, well, how has it changed? And it turns out since 1969, that's when America started caring about individuals, I think, or saying they did. And poverty's basically stayed the exact same. It's basically been, it's never deviated. Well, it looks like it maybe hit 16% poverty in the 80s. So it was Reagan's fault. Well, right at the beginning of Reagan's term, and then it goes down. That's what I'm seeing there. But 1969, poverty was at like, well, see, that's kind of messed up. Poverty was like 3%. Or sorry, no, poverty spending was at, I'm way off. I can't read a chart. All right. Poverty was about 12% in 1969, and it's about 11% in 2025. So I feel like we're kind of right on track. We're not really changing. Now, here's the trick though. Spending has gone from 3,500 to about 30,000 per person in poverty from the federal government. So immediately when I look at that chart, I think, oh, that means the government is just throwing money at the problem and they're not doing anything good. But I started thinking about it and I was like, well, let me do some calculations here, right? And I obviously had to break out my phone. That kind of stuff can't just happen in my head, right? I'm not that good. But the bottom line is that's a 689% increase in spending on the poor. Okay. 689%. Now work with me. I know nobody likes numbers, but then I was like, well, how has the dollar really fared? I always cry to everybody telling people, well, the dollar's worthless. So is spending the same? So I decided to look at silver. And you're not going to believe this. Silver in 1969 was $1.96 an ounce. And so I did January 1st, 1969, and I did January 1st, 2025. And it's 2026. And it's 71.30 an ounce in 2026. So that's a 3,540% increase. So it sounds like the dollar is worth a lot less. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, maybe that's because silver is, so valuable with electronics and circuit boards. We didn't realize that back then. Maybe that's why the increase. So I was like, well, how about a V8 Mustang in 1969 versus 2025, right? I was like, well, how's that work out? Turns out 1,573% increase in price. So we've actually increased spending of poverty way less than inflation has really gone by my strict standards of silver and Mustangs, because really, I mean, is there anything else really of value? I mean, what else are you going to compare it to?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I mean, what else would you base value on?
All right. I mean, that's the only thing I would have wanted to buy in 1969 that I would want to buy today. I mean, you're thinking toilet paper, but I bet that's gone up too. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't chart out everything. I had to go with practical, but that's one of the things is we really, I feel like there's programs that encourage that encourage a kind of dependent behavior. But honestly, the spending doesn't really show it in percentage wise. But in my mind, there's like way more programs. Are people not getting value, or is it just really mismanaged? I think that's more the thing. I feel like we're spending the same on poverty as we were before, based on those stats. But I feel like we just manage it poorly.
Well, that $30,000. If you took that $30,000 that was that is going to help each poor person, and instead of paying government employees that money to solve a problem, you just gave it to poor people, not better off. I don't support that, but they would be a lot better off if you gave them $30,000. They could get to work and back. I know a lot of people that are poor that don't have a vehicle and can't get up because of that.
Absolutely. No, I don't understand it. It's really crazy of, what are we doing here? And I don't know. We're not helping. And that's the thing, like, you want to be charitable, you want to care, but on the flip side, are we really solving the problem by, by just throwing money at it and running things the way we're doing? Maybe charity is coming from the wrong place. Maybe it should be with the churches or whatever. Now, I know Kevin would say, well, I live in New York and I don't even think we have a church left in New York, so nobody's helping. But, in other states, there are churches. Maybe California doesn't have churches. Yeah, I don't know how it works in the rest of the country.
Yeah, I mean, you could call your church and see if they will do money or baby formula for your child that's hungry. But they're gonna say yes. So good luck to charity from churches. That shit doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Yeah, I will say it's pretty popular where I am. But I'm in the deep South, right? People in North Carolina call it the deep South. No, I know Georgia and other people would say no, it's where you got to go further to get there. But it we have a bit of helping hand with the churches and stuff here. We try and get involved and see things, but yeah, it's crazy, but it's just feels like the government just wants more and more power. And I think that's the philosophy from either angle of it. And what I mean by that is the government wants you not to be prepared so they have power over you. And they encourage dependence so they have power over you, because the more you need from them. But I don't think it's necessarily by you being on social programs. I feel like some people are on social programs, so they need assistance because the government is taking so much from them. I mean, because the government's taking from people. Now, I know a lot of you, like, it flashes through your mind. Oh, Chuck, I saw on the news that poor people don't pay taxes. And I hear you, but employers can offer less, like, especially small businesses. It's really hard for small businesses to actually work and function and hire people and meet all the strict standards, and then they're hiring less people. Therefore, it's harder to find a job, and you require dependence. You require assistance, right? And that's, I think, where you go down this road. People always say, oh, people are lazy and don't want to work. I don't imagine that signing up for those programs is easy or, something you can just do. I think it's actually a fight, you know. I think that, I always talk with my wife about this kind of thing. And a lot of times if you work a little bit, you end up like hitting a threshold where it's too much money and they can't give you assistance. And like they actually like fight you and punish you and kind of want to force you to embrace it. And it's a big mess. And I'm sure it's different from state to state. And I know in New York, they offer different levels of assistance than they would like here in the South where I am. But it's things like that, the different levels that make all the difference. And I think that we need to find a way to kind of sort it out better. And we're not doing good right now. And that's the thing. The country seems so divided and at odds with each other. And, I know it's not, I guess, right when they first wanted, when Hillary and Trump were running against each other in the early primary, there was like really divided and how dare you and whatever. It doesn't seem as ugly, but maybe it's just because I'm not watching the news anymore. Because I feel like there's still a lot of hatred back and forth in the country. And we try and divide it. I mean, partly by race, we divide things by poverty and income level. I do see a lot of things like on my social media feed about, how the evil billionaires and they're all wrong and it's all their fault. And a lot of that stuff going on. And the same thing, you used to hear, and I'm sure if you're in the right Facebook groups, oh, it's the poor people or whatever that are ruining it for everybody. Or I guess right now we're on it's the immigrants, and it's all their fault. And obviously none of this is black and white. The absolutes aren't really there. And that's what makes it hard. There is no easy answer, and there is a whole lot of corruption and bureaucracy that you would have to get through in order to kind of straighten things out and make peace with it. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah. Nobody's talking about up and down, right? So I know millionaires like don't want to pay taxes, but I feel like that's the compromise. That's the compromise, that we don't, drag you out in the street and shoot you. And I don't know why they don't get that. Like, maybe just taxes, and then nobody will have them. You can be a billionaire and still afford groceries, even if you have to pay taxes, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the wife and I, we at one of the debates we had a while back was, I was like, well, my big problem with illegal immigration is that they're not paying, income tax and Social Security and all this. And we looked it up, and they really are.
They are paying.
The majority of immigrants get an EIN, right? The tax ID number.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still paying into the system. They're just not getting any benefit for it.
Right.
But I feel like that's a big failure on the federal government. On why would we be allowing people to say, hey, I'm here illegally, I'm not part of the system here, but I need to pay because you're so greedy and you just want my money.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that failing is an issue, right? You can't do, and it puts the people at a disadvantage because these people are afraid to stand up to their landlord. They're afraid to call the police. They're afraid to call for emergency services because we're making them, hey, you shouldn't be here, but we want to make sure that you're paying and giving us money, right? That's like, it's just a big mess. And that's where it goes to. And I feel like it is such a corrupt system. But again, it's hard to say because I can't point to the other country. Oh, well, this is the model. This is what we should be doing. I don't see that. I don't see that, coming through as the better answer because it's just kind of a mess. I just want it to be 1950 again, Kevin. Or was there a Cold War then and some kind of, I don't know.
Heroin addiction was through the roof in 1950. There's a lot of problems in 1950 that nobody talks about. Like, don't be a black dude in 1950. That sucked. They might just have you because a white woman got raped somebody and you were standing around.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in any way. Well, I don't know. It's a crazy world. But anyway, so with that, it's just something to think about, right? Just don't accept everything. And I think it really comes back to preparedness, right? We need to take care of yourself because the more you're self-reliant, the more you're independent, the more options you have, right? I'm not saying don't go along when the government's like, hey, there's a big flood coming. There's a dam at the end of the road and we see big cracks in it. And we want everybody to move to the shelter over here. And you're like, no, I have my farm. I'm going to take care of myself. And the water comes and kills everybody, right? See, that kind of thing would be bad. You don't want to be ridiculous, right? We need to pay attention. We need to be open-minded. We need to listen to what people are saying and then kind of get to the bottom of what their motives are. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And that's why I like to have these discussions, to just kind of see like, what's the real reasoning here? What are we trying to do? And the more you have an understanding of how things work and you see different points of view, different opinions, then you can make more informed decisions and kind of go with things like that. So that's what I got. I appreciate you guys sticking around. I had some little issues with the internet today. So anything you guys bore through, I appreciate it. And yeah, thoughts, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, I would say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.